I have pieces of the Star Trek Experience carpet on my wall. If that's not a collector's item, I don't know what is.
Trek Profiles Podcast, episode 70, recorded August 2022. This is the Trek Profiles Podcast, where each episode we dive deep into one Trekkie's fandom and try to figure out why we all love this show so much. I'm John, your intrepid host of this whole enterprise, and I welcome you to this, the Trek Profiles Podcast, episode 70. If you wish to get in touch with us, you can reach us at feedback@trekprofiles.com or on Facebook or Twitter at Trek Profiles. Spoiler warning, this podcast may have spoilers up to and including Season 3 of Lower Decks, so all previous Trek content up to and including that point is fair game and may be discussed during this episode. You have been warned, humans. As always, my trusty sidekick and co-host is the distinctly dramatic, downright deadpan, yet dreadfully draconian M5 Multitronic unit. Say hi, M5.
The M5 is at full power.
Show me the announcements.
Announcements ready.
This podcast is an independent show. If you'd like to support us, the best way you can do that is to follow us wherever you're getting your audio. We're on all the major platforms, and your following us helps other Trek fans find us. You may have noticed a slight format change if you're a repeat listener. From now on, each episode is going to start with a little pull quote from the episode just for funsies. There are some lightly edited outtakes and bonus material at the end of this episode. They will come after the ending audio cards. Enjoy them, or not, as you choose. So, at the end of every episode, my guest faces my Kobayashi Maru lightning round. They get 5 terrible multiple-choice Star Trek questions, and they have to give us their answer. And after each episode drops, I tweet those questions out as polls where you can have your say. So let's look at the questions from episode 67 with April Eden and see how it went. Choose your space comfort food, chocolate with Troy, Hasperat with Kira, or catfish with Trip. Troy was the runaway favorite with 63% of the audience and my guest selecting the delectable dessert. 21% of you opted for the spicy Hasperat with Kira, and Trip and his catfish only got 16%. No love for the southern cooking. The EMH can't separate Tuvix, but can recover one of his components. What's your choice? Neelix, Tuvok, the Orchid, or keep Tuvix? Tuvok was selected by my guest as well as the audience by 53%. Neelix got 3% of the vote. Keeping Tuvix got a respectable 32%, and 12% of you weirdos apparently selected to keep the Orchid. I literally don't know what to say about that. Next question. Jolan True, your child wants a furry friend to keep them company. Will it be a stuffed Flodder or a stuffed Murph? My guest picked Flodder, but in the poll, Murph swallowed and digested Flodder by 86 to 14%. Who's cooking dinner? Captain Pike, the Rikers, or Captain Janeway? My guest must be an adventurous eater, and she selected Janeway. The poll came out with Captain Pike's table, however, as the favorite at 63%, with Janeway and her burnt pot roast at 24%, and the Rikers at 13%. The bunny corn pizza did not appear to be at all popular. And finally, choose your captain's line: punch it, hit it, or warp me. April picked Punch It, but in the Twitter poll, Hit It smashed the competition by 64%, with Punch It and Warp Me tied at 18% apiece. Now, if you enjoyed those questions and would like to take a stab at writing your own for possible inclusion in the show, which will get you a shout-out in the show and on the show notes page at trekprofiles.com, send them to me at feedback@trekprofiles.com or DM me on Twitter. Okay, I have a little brief piece of errata. For some reason during this episode, as we were talking, I could not remember the name of the Deep Space Nine episode, Facets. I don't know why. I had a brain fart. I actually really liked that episode. But anyway, I regret the omission. That's it for announcements. Let's get to it. M5, roll it.
Beginning transmission.
Her favorite character is that wild and crazy android Data. She loves the Bajorans, the Klingons, and the Caitians, too. What the what? And it's no surprise that her favorite ship is the USS Protostar. She's from Los Angeles, California, North America, Earth, in Sector 001. It's Bonnie Gordon. Welcome, Bonnie, and thanks for being on the podcast.
Hi, thank you.
Bonnie, are you a Star Trek fan?
I am a huge Star Trek fan.
I understand via some internet sleuthing that the M5 did on my behalf that you became a fan while working tangentially for Star Trek. So you're going to have to tell me what this is about.
Yeah, so I discovered Star Trek way later in life. Of course, I knew of its existence. I knew some Star Trek stuff. But growing up, it was just never in my radar. I was a huge fantasy geek, so I was more of like a Lord of the Rings. You know, I had like wizards and fairies all over my wall, you know, stuff like that. And I slowly started to get into sci-fi as I got older. And born and raised in Louisiana. And then after Katrina, I moved around a bit, working in Orlando and Vegas. And when I ended up in Vegas, I auditioned for a really fun type of experience. See what I did there? Called the Star Trek Experience. And I knew nothing of Star Trek at the time of my audition. But apparently I was good enough to trick them into thinking that I knew something. I improv'd my way through it. And they did say, however, if I wanted to keep this job, I need to start watching Star Trek and doing a little research. So that's how I got into it. I was a Starfleet officer on the bridge of the Enterprise on the Star Trek Experience, and I had to start watching. I started with Next Gen because that's the
set. Yeah.
That was the logical choice, since I was
nice
within the Star Trek Experience. I was, talking on a screen to Commander Riker and Geordi LaForge, and I was interacting with those characters, so I needed to know who they were and what ship I was on. So I started with Next Gen, and then once I got past Next Generation, I just dove in, sure. I jumped into the deep end.
Whatever it is.
Went back in time, and I decided to watch all of them in order, starting with the original series. And that's how I became a Trekkie.
So it has to have been a challenge for you trying to just get all the corpus of Star Trek under your belt while you're working for the Experience, because you know that people are going to ask you questions.
Oh, yeah. Well, the good news is that we're on the Enterprise, and I was mostly doing the actual Experience where they get brought in from the past into the future, if that makes sense.
That's you're working the ride.
I was working the ride. Yeah. So, and a lot of the time we did have to improvise because there would be delays. And whenever they would ask questions, I had the perfect excuse of the Prime Directive to dodge their questions. However, I do remember I would switch it on them and start asking them questions about their century. And I would be like, I was listening to some classic music from your time, and can someone please explain to me what the phrase "chillin' in the crib" meant, and why on earth would you want a baby's sleeping arrangements to be so cold? Like I would do stuff like that, like really silly things like that, and they would just look at me like, there was a group of tourists and they were holding the little booklets of like what shows were happening in Vegas at the time. Mm-hmm. And on the cover of that month was the vampire strip show Bite. So it was a bunch of like people with fangs like biting each other on the cover.
Oh, sure.
And I remember like as we were waiting for something to happen and I had to improvise, and I just looked at I grabbed one of them. I was like, oh, that's so strange. I thought cannibalism was frowned down upon during your time of this. I don't know. I would just make up stuff like that and, play like I had no idea what time frame they were from. It was fun.
Oh, that's excellent.
And then just use the Prime Directive as an excuse of why I couldn't answer any of their questions. And then as I got to know Star Trek more, and obviously I got better at answering and improvising answers for them. But when I first started the job, the Prime Directive was my go-to answer.
I imagine then that you started watching TNG, you got all the way through TNG, and then did you go back and watch the rest of the episodes?
I did. I went back all the way to the original series, watched original series, most of the animated series. Of course, watched all of Voyager and DS9 and Enterprise. But what's funny is I watched Enterprise, and it's the one that slips my mind all the time. It's the one I can't remember, and so I think I'm going to do a rewatch very, very soon.
Oh, good. Enterprise is glorious. It has its problems, but it has its charms too.
They all
as
have
I like
their problems, but they're all special in their own way.
That's right. That's right. So as we sit here in 2022, there's over 800 hours of canonical Star Trek. Have you seen it all?
I think I have. Yeah. Especially with all the new Trek. Yeah, I have seen it all.
Now I
might have missed a short Trek in there somewhere. On Paramount Plus, like one of those little shorts. I think I missed one or two of those, but I think for the most part, I've seen them all, including all the films.
So I do know, though, that some people that are involved in production of shows, they can't stand to watch any work that they've actually appeared in. I guess that you're immune from that. So you've seen all the Prodigy?
Oh my gosh, of course I've seen all of Prodigy. It's so good. Have you watched it? It's fantastic. It's one of the best it's one of the best new tricks ever.
I've seen it all.
I've been very lucky that I got to be a part of Prodigy from the beginning, to where I actually got to do the scratch vocals for Gwen and Captain Janeway, or Hologram Janeway. So it was really exciting to watch it with it all done and put together, and like the animation completed, and all the voices, all the actors in their parts. Of course, you're your own worst critic. Sometimes I hear a line that I've done back and I'm like, I could have done that better. But, there's only so much acting you can do when you're a computer. So it's not like I can, I should have put more angst in this line, nope, this is not quite how it works, but.
Right on. So scratch vocals, for those who don't know, if I understand it correctly, is just you were recording basically the temp lines for them to use in pre-production until they bring in actually Kate Mulgrew or whoever to actually record their lines. Do I have that right?
Yeah. So with Prodigy especially, we worked all of this throughout COVID. So everyone was recording remotely. Everyone was scrambling to find, a studio or some kind of home equipment that would work. And with the animators having to animate so quickly and also doing everything remotely, they needed some kind of recording down to animate too. And usually if you get people who are not actors reading the lines, the performance can feel a little flat. And when you have someone like Kate Mulgrew, who has the most incredible cadence and the most incredible power to her voice, you don't want to animate with a flat performance. So I was really honored when they asked me if I'd be willing to do some of the scratch for Kate while she was busy. And I, might have fangirled a little bit. I'm like, wait, I'm so sorry. You need me to read the lines of Janeway? I'm sorry, what? So that was really incredibly special, because Janeway is my favorite captain.
Sorry, Janeway's awesome. Yeah, yeah. We're big Janeway fans here. So wait a minute, I want to understand this correctly. So the animators had to animate according to the vocals that you recorded. So did that mean that when Kate was recording her lines, she had to match the cadence that you put down?
No, not quite. It was doing like the basic. They weren't like doing mouth flap or anything yet. I don't believe. It was more like trying to get the emotion of the scene, trying to get, it was all. It was also, they needed to hear it out loud, so that way if they needed to change any lines, if they needed to change any of the dialogue, if they needed to cut certain things and rewrite certain things. So it was a lot of factors involved. I know I recorded the scratch vocals for Gwen, the Gwen character, for I think up to like 8 episodes.
Oh, wow.
And then once Janeway came into the show, I was able to do scratch for quite a few episodes for her in the beginning as well. Now I believe they just have the actors do most of their recording from the get-go, but it was really, really fun to pretend to be Janeway for, even if it was just for a brief moment in time.
Oh, that's a thrill. I can't wait to see the second half of season 1. So I think it's going to be really stellar.
It's so good. Oh, I can't say anything obviously, but it's so good.
Don't worry, we don't do any news here on the show, so don't worry, I'm not going to ask you about any of that.
I have no news, zero news. I know nothing.
Do we know though when it's going to come out at all? Have they even announced it?
I don't even know that. Nope.
Okay. I don't think anybody knows. I don't even think they know.
All up in the air.
So are you a collector at all?
Oh man. So my room, yes, I am. A collector of all different types of fandoms. Specifically Star Trek, yes, but also like just fantasy. I have a lot of Muppet items. But Star Trek in general, I've been so lucky to have been involved in not only Star Trek projects, but just finding amazing things. Like, for example, with the Star Trek experience, I had a friend of mine who had pieces of the carpet, unused pieces of the carpet that they had in storage that were like used for, if the carpet was damaged, they could remove a piece of it and put it down. Right. And he gave me some, and so that's what's hanging on my wall right now to help me make my rooms more soundproof for voiceover recording. I have pieces of the Star Trek Experience carpet on my wall. If that's not a collector's item, I don't know what is. But I also have a lot of items. I have a lot of signed prints from different actors throughout the series. I collect Star Trek posters. I have a great poster of Data holding Spot, and then it says "easily distracted by Star Trek and cats." So it's definitely towards me. I have the closing cast poster from the Star Trek Experience of all of us on this poster that they made for us. It was really sweet.
Nice.
I have a lot of items from the Star Trek Experience gift shop that I've collected throughout the years. I have a piece of the set from Shield of Tomorrow. For those of you who don't know who that is, I was on a Star Trek TTRPG show on Geek and Sundry. It can be found online on YouTube. It's fantastic. I think there's over 40 episodes. Really good storytelling, really good Trek. And, it's like a TTRPG show. So we're all improvising the entire time, creating these characters that we've made. And I have a piece of the set from that. So I have an actual, console looking thing on my wall in case I need to, in case tactical needs me. I have a guitar signed by LeVar Burton hanging on my wall. I have some pretty obscure items that some would say would be collectors. But I collect books. I love books. I love to read. I love old keys. I collect old keys. I have way too many things. Basically, I need to go through my room and get rid of half of my stuff.
So what is your most prized Star Trek collection item?
Honestly, it's going to be probably a newer item. I have a lovely giant print of Janeway poster that she signed for me saying, thank you for, I wish I could go grab it and read it to tell you exactly what it says, but it says something along the lines of, thank you so much for keeping the Protostar in shape while I was busy, or something like that. It was something along the lines of thanking me for, doing scratch for her, or basically making sure the Protostar didn't crash into an asteroid belt. Well,
that's amazing.
Yeah, so that was really neat.
If you can, I would love it if you would take a few snaps of those things and send them to me, because I put them up on the show notes page when the show goes live.
I also have, because I'm a huge Muppet fan and a Star Trek fan, I have a miniature set replica of the Pigs in Space set.
That is glorious.
I have a lot of things.
But don't you have to say it like pigs in space? Don't you have to say it? Space! I think I remember 3 things about the Muppet Show, and that's one of them. The other one is Statler and Waldorf, and I don't even know what the third one is. Okay, fantastic. What is the first sci-fi / Star Trek convention you ever went to?
Oh, gosh. The first? That's a tough one.
There were some that happened at the experience while you were working there, I would imagine. But the first one you went to after, where you weren't paid to be there.
Well, I wasn't actually paid to be there. I would say Star Trek Las Vegas. A few years after I'd left Vegas and I was living in LA, and I made the drive down. Not only because I wanted to go, but because I wanted to have a little reunion with some of the Star Trek Experience actors. And yeah, that was so much fun. It was my first actual Star Trek convention. I've been to conventions before. With my comedy band, we were on tour. We were doing 100 conventions a year almost. It was a little too intense. But I do a lot of conventions, but specific Star Trek ones, I think that was my first. And I also just recently did Shore Leave Con in Maryland. Mm-hmm. That one was a blast.
Nice.
I know it's not strictly Star Trek, but it's pretty darn close. And I'm going to Star Trek Las Vegas in a couple weeks. Again, the 56-year mission. I went to Star Trek Mission Chicago in March. I love the Star Trek community. First off, is amazing. And the fact that I get to be a part of it in such an intimate way is so much more rewarding now that I get to when I walk down the aisles of the convention, I feel like I'm truly a part of it, and it's really special.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I'll see you at STLV in a few weeks.
Yay!
Or whatever they're calling it these days.
Whenever this episode drops is probably in the past, but if you did see me there, thank you. Come hug me, whatever.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to come out until after STLV for sure. So
time travel.
Yeah, we're going through the time machine.
We're going through a wormhole.
Yeah. So what's your favorite part of the conventions?
Oh, I love looking at all the amazing cosplay. I love all the new things I can buy that I shouldn't buy because I have too many things already, but I want to buy them all. I love with the vendors, especially. I love it when local artists or people create Star Trek items and Star Trek art. There's a lot of stuff you can get that's basically the quote unquote, licensed stuff. But I love it when artists take full liberty and create something unique within the Star Trek verse of merchandise. I just love the community of it. Like I'm looking forward to singing karaoke with Trekkies. I'm looking forward to, I don't know what my actual schedule is yet for the con, but there's a rumor or two rumors or multiple rumors that I might be getting up and doing a musical set for some different events, singing Star Trek music. So if that's the case, I'm extremely excited to be performing. And with my comedy band, we do a lot of Star Trek music.
Go ahead and give them a plug.
I'm in a band called the Library Bards. So we'll take songs off the radio and make them nerdy, like you do. Very weird, very Weird Al of us. But we have a bunch of Star Trek ones. We have All About That Bass, but it's all about that space. No tribbles. We have Hit Me With Your Best Shot, but it's Now You Got the Bridge, Spock, Kirk is away. And Aerosmith's Dream On, but it's Cling On, Cling On. I also have some original stuff that I'd be doing. I'm currently recording a solo album, and I have a full Star Trek medley on the album that I'll be doing, which is like a mix of the original series theme song with the lyrics that Gene Roddenberry wrote, as well as of course, the theme of Enterprise. It's been a long road. So we kind of medley all of that together.
Do you prefer the season 1-2 version or the season 3-4 version?
Why do you have to choose? Why can't you you don't have to choose. Just enjoy it all.
All right.
You know what? I'm gonna say 1 and 2 because I don't know. It made me laugh every time I heard it when I first started watching Enterprise. Every time, like sometimes you would skip the intro. It would make me laugh.
What?
Every time
people would skip the intro?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, heresy.
It's been a long road. I would just giggle every time. I'm like, to me, it was so ridiculous.
Well, the part of it that gets me, because I'm doing an Enterprise rewatch, but one of the things that really kills me is when they decide to take the show in a darker turn, the theme song got like lighter and more jangly and more pop sounding. Yeah. And they also the show goes dark.
The Mirror Universe episode when the theme song was like just completely different entirely. You're like, wait a minute. Or the whole like opening sequence was different. You're like, whoa, okay, this is different. Anywho.
So you mentioned cosplay. Are you a cosplayer at all?
I don't consider myself a cosplayer. I do enjoy dressing up every now and then, but I would definitely not consider myself a cosplayer on a regular basis. Star Trek Las Vegas, I might bring a costume or two, maybe. I'm not sure yet. I tend to wear clothes that are already geekery themed, so I'll probably be wearing like a dress covered in like the Enterprise or stuff like that. But I don't really do cosplay too much. A lot of people think I'm a cosplayer because with the Library Bards, with all of our music videos and live performances, we're always in costume. But and I'm okay with that assumption. But I definitely wouldn't consider myself a cosplayer too often. I have cosplayed though, if that makes sense, and I enjoy it.
Oh, it's. But
I wouldn't want to take away. I wouldn't want to take away from like the cosplayers who actually like go full out and it's almost like an art form for them. And for me, it's just like, oh yeah, I have this jacket. I'm going to put it on. Oh, is this a costume? Sure, why not? I'm more of a cosplay light. We'll go that way.
So how did you get cast in Prodigy as the computer?
Well, I originally auditioned for the role of Gwen and made it pretty far for Gwen. I think I was like in the top couple. And that's why, and while they were trying to figure out if, who they were going to use, I know they did want a bigger name for that character. So that's when the Hageman brothers asked me if I'd be willing to come in and do scratch for Gwen while they still looked at casting. So I got pulled into the project for Gwen and was recording scratch for her character, and then later scratch for Janeway. And then that's when everything got finalized and cast and things were moving forward with the show, they were like, don't worry, we're gonna keep trying to find a spot for you in it. And then I received an audition for the ship computer. So I sent in as much as I could. Like different types, I was like, do they want a Majel Roddenberry impression? Do they want something completely new? So I was sending in all kinds of stuff. And finally they were like, okay, we get it. You want to be the computer. And it just worked out. They're wonderful. The Hageman brothers, all the production team, the directors, the voiceover director, the writers, the producers, everyone on this project. They're all Trekkies. They really care about Star Trek. They care about the message that we're bringing to the younger generation that's now just first discovering Trek for the first time. Mm-hmm. And to be a part of that journey has been incredible.
So as we record this, we're halfway through season 1. The other half hasn't come out yet, but you've finished all your work on it, yeah? Everything.
I mean, maybe.
Oh, that's not secret. That's not a secret.
Well, yeah, it is. Let's just say season 2's already been greenlit for season 2.
That's fantastic. But my question is, how much of season 1 did you actually get to do in the studio, and how much was working from home?
Most all of season 1 has been remote because of COVID. I went in to do the scratch for Gwen in beginning of March 2020. I was in the studio. We were recording the pilot episode at Nickelodeon, and we all started getting notifications on our phones saying how the following Monday everything would be going on lockdown, and we were like, "Oh, that's weird." That's kind of crazy. Oh, well, that'll be fine. We'll see each other again in 2 weeks. Yeah. Fast forward a year and a half later, we're all seeing each other again for the first time. So it's all been remote. It's all been through Zoom. I know all the actors have had to record from wherever they are within the world. I think some of the actors were even in the UK, Canada, East Coast. So everyone was everywhere else recording remotely. I just now recently have been able to get back into the studio. A lot of them are still recording remotely. I mean, actors like D. Bradley Baker, he's been doing voiceover for so long. He has his own home setup, crazy booth at his place. He has a home studio that can easily be used to record remotely. My home studio is not as fancy as his. So I prefer to go into the studio because for me, whenever I'm recording, it's always difficult when my cat, walks in and is like, meow. And I'm like, no, you messed up the take, So,
right. So all the season 1 Prodigy computer voice was you recording at home?
Pretty much, yeah. Almost everything, except for maybe a few pickups that was added later on. Almost everything I've done in season 1 has been recorded from my bedroom.
So logistically, how does this work? I mean, obviously they're sending you lines, and are you recording them in the blind and just sending them in, or are you on a live session?
We're all in a live session. There's 10 people watching me through a Zoom camera. I'm getting direction from Brooke, the voiceover director. I'm getting notes from the Hageman brothers, notes from any of the directors that are on the line. There's the sound engineer that's recording on his end. I'm recording on my end to send them the raw audio. So it's a lot of steps.
In order
is
this
to
with
make
the other
it
actors as well?
No.
Is this just for your lines?
They do it one by one because when you're recording remotely through a Zoom, it's going to be very difficult. You'll if you have multiple people recording, you might have a delay. You might have
right.
If you're trying to talk at the same time, it's gonna. Zoom's going to cancel some of the audio out. It doesn't make any sense. Plus, with time constraints, if you get someone like Kate Milgrew in, you want to knock all of her lines out. You don't want her just sitting around waiting if she has a couple lines, on the end of the pages. And, she has to wait for everyone else to get their lines correct before she can record. There are some shows that I've done where they've brought in the entire cast and we've done it all. Obviously, not since COVID, but back when I did some voiceovers on a show on Cartoon Network called Mighty Magiswords, we'd bring the whole cast of that episode would be in and we'd all be recording together. And it was so much fun. The energy's so great. But right now with COVID, with everyone still also not local, you really can't do that. And so they do it all remotely via Zoom and one-on-one, back to back.
Okay, Bonnie, I think we should talk about some episodes. Are you game?
Let's do it.
All right. So I had the M5 do some gentle internet sleuthing and come up with a list of episodes for us to talk about. And it seems like we got a data-heavy list.
Oh no! Why was that?
No.
What? Why? Oh no!
How could this happen? So let's start with a fistful of datas. So this, of course, is the one where we go into the holodeck with the world's worst father, Worf, along with Alexander, and we have Counselor Troy in there, and of course we have Brent doing all the datas, doing all the things.
Yeah.
What about this particular episode is special and or noteworthy for you, Bonnie?
Here's the thing with Star Trek, they're so good at having episodes with extremely high stakes and, extreme like life lessons and yada yada. And then there's the episodes that are just so silly and fun and really lets the cast just kind of have a good time. And A Handful of Datas is one of those episodes that anytime I think of, I just always get a smile on my face, especially remembering Data coming down the stairs as like the saloon girl, like, oh, Sheriff, it always makes me laugh. I don't think it's a lot of people's favorite episode, but for me, it just also shows the versatility of Brent Spiner. I feel like he's such a talented actor, and with Data, he had to play such a level, what's the word? Like ones that, he couldn't really show emotion, and they always found ways for him to stretch his acting chops, whether it be playing, lore or playing, other characters within his family.
Yeah,
or,
the Soongs.
All the Soongs. And what I particularly love is when they do an episode like this where all the bets are off, there are no rules, and he can just be ridiculous. He played like all the brothers, the dad, all the outlaws, he was playing like the entire town basically. And as an actor, what fun that must have been just to goof around and, be on a Western set on the back lot and just be like, well, now I'm playing this part, how fun would that be? So I do love that episode. A lot of any Data episode that takes place in a holodeck, I'm a fan of. So anything with the Sherlock Holmes, I'm a huge fan of Sherlock Holmes. So watching Next Generation for the first time, I was beyond thrilled when Geordi and Data went into the holodeck multiple times as Sherlock and Watson. I was like, are you kidding me? Because that's what I would do on a holodeck. That's the kind of stuff I would want to do.
Right on.
Is act out stories and just play. It's playing pretend. And the fact that Data and Geordi, it really showcased their friendship. And I know I'm skipping to other episodes. I apologize. But
that's okay.
I love how it focuses on their friendship and shows like their dynamic and shows their special relationship, as well as just plain old fun. Yeah. And you get to wear tweed.
What do you think about the episode Masks? That's not on the list, but since you like Data episodes, I thought I'd ask your opinion of it. Do you remember this one?
Ooh.
Masaka is waking. Brent is wearing the mask.
Oh, that one was... yeah. Oh, man.
That one gets a lot of flack from a lot of fans, but I think it's a glorious episode, and I'm a big defender of it. But I always want to know.
That was a cool episode. As soon as you said Masks, the first episode I thought of was the DS9 episode where we're going into Jadzia Dax's past hosts of the...
Oh, right. Yeah, here's Yantara. I forget what the episode title is, but yeah, they have all the characters playing different characters from her past.
Right, but fun fact, do you remember the one with the mask and it's doing like the mask magic tricks kind of thing?
Right.
That's an actual magician who played that called Jeff McBride. And I'm friends with him. So I work at a magic club in Hollywood called the Magic Castle. So I know almost all the magicians like all over the world. I'm good friends with magicians. And I remember doing like a rewatch of DS9 after the fact of when I started working at the castle and being like, wow, that guy looks so familiar. I grant you, this was, he was a lot younger when he was shooting DS9. And I was like,
sure.
Why do I know this person? And I looked it up. And of course it's Jeff McBride doing the masks of that host that Jadzia Dax doesn't remember. And I was just like, that is the coolest thing ever. So I got so excited knowing that one of my magician friends is also in Star Trek with me. Oh,
that's great. One of the ones that I always can't, how do I want to say this? It always bothers me when I'm watching the episode Inner Light and you notice once it's pointed out to you that Picard's hands are not actually playing the flute. it's another guy's hands, like,
Yeah, and then you just
it
can't not notice it.
Yeah, you just can't not notice it. You're like, oh God, and it just kind of I wish no one had told me that.
Kind of like the crystal ball juggling in Labyrinth,
I always think of that.
As soon as we know that David Bowie's not actually doing it, you're like, oh, David Bowie.
Oh man. But
you're a magical creature. You could do it.
Talk about some earworm songs, right? This girl, she's got the power of voodoo. I mean, it's just glorious. Yeah. Glorious
I
film.
sing there at some big Comic-Cons like San Diego Comic-Con and a few others. There's a band I sing with called the Flux Capacitors. They're a big nerdy
excellent
band. They're amazing. Look them up, guys. They're fantastic if you're listening. The Flux Capacitors. Anyway, I sing with them sometimes, and one of the songs they always have me do in the sets is Dance Magic Dance, and I get to sing lead on that, and so it's always so fun to perform with them.
Oh my gosh! If you have a YouTube video or anything of you doing that, I'll put it up in the show notes, and I'll tweet the hell out of that, and I'll put links to all of your bands in the show notes page.
Yeah,
for sure.
I have too many bands,
so no worries. I will tweet all that stuff out and post it up. That's all good. Yeah. So let's talk about a more serious Data episode. Let's talk about A Measure of a Man. That's one that was on the list as well, but this is a heavier episode. This isn't fun and games. This is life and death. So what about this episode?
It's an episode that shows the relationship that people have towards Data on the ship. And, I understand with Data being an android and not being quite human, it is where do you draw that line? Like, where does the line between sentience and machine really lie? And here's the thing with technology continuing to grow in our society, we're going to have to be asking these questions later in life. I probably in the next 50 to 100 years, I have a feeling there's going to be that moment where we're going to have to really consider, is this intelligent is this artificial intelligence like a sentient being now? Because technology is continuing to grow and become more and more evolved. I mean, honestly, this is how we get Skynet. So just everyone, please be careful. Please be careful out there. But regardless of it all, I love A Measure of a Man, and I love how they brought that into season 1 of Picard, where they, follow that plot line and bring back some of the characters.
Yeah, Maddox.
Bringing back Maddox, and I was really a fan of it. Really shows how detailed and interweaved the universe is, and the characters and the story, that they were able to bring back Maddox and bring back all the issues that were brought up in A Measure of a Man. I love how Data got to speak on his behalf too about his relationship with the crew members and how he was able to bring up his memories with Tasha Yar, and how they had a very intimate and close relationship. Like it just showed different sides of Data and different sides of how the crew and him interacted with each other, but also brought up those questions. The fact that Riker had to represent the opposite side. I don't know, just everything about that episode. I feel like the writing is really strong. I feel like the desperation in Picard of him trying to prove to the council or whatever that Data belongs there and should make his own choices. It's a really, really strong episode. I feel like it's always stood out as one of my favorites.
Do you think that hologram Janeway from Prodigy is a sentient being?
Absolutely. Just look at the hologram, the Doctor from Voyager. He evolved way past his programming and became his own person, basically his own personality. And those are the kind of episodes too that I love that focuses on that, because I feel like, yes, we're all human, but deep down, a lot of us always feel like a little different or out of place, or like we don't belong, or maybe we're not quite fully human, in our own way. So I feel like episodes like that really focus on that feeling of being an outsider and not really fully like you belong, or like your opinions are less than. I feel like those types of episodes really have strong undertones for dealing with different things like gender inequality, race inequality, religion inequality, where, people are looked at less than in a way, which should never be the case. And I feel like those types of episodes, even though they're talking about a hologram, or they're talking about a android or a different alien race that might not be humanoid in some capacity, those types of episodes really focus on just that feeling of being different and being misunderstood. and not having your opinions and your feelings be taken seriously or be taken into account. So yeah, I love those types of episodes.
Deep Space Nine, Trials and Tribulations. Tell me.
First of all, can we just focus on the incredible editing that especially in that era of television? My God, did they do something so brilliant where having the DS9 crew go back in time to an original episode and then editing it almost flawlessly to where they blended in completely with the original series episode of The Trouble with Tribbles. That episode, when I remember watching that episode for the first time and having my jaw just on the ground, being like, how did they do that? It was so good. And then the writing of it, interweaving the plot of what they were doing and how it was affecting things on the Enterprise of from the original series, like what they were doing, like the from the future coming into the past. You know, they were trying to not be noticed at all, but anything they would do, it would like domino effect into something that would happen to Captain Kirk, or you know, a fight would break out, or, you know, something would happen. And I was just like, I remember that scene from the original series, and that happened. And it's because they did this in the other room, and it was just perfectly done. I loved that episode. I feel like it's definitely one of the best DS9 episodes by far. That one, and also the one where, oh gosh, what was it called? Where it shows them all back in like the 1950s. And
Far Beyond the Stars.
Yes, that one is fantastic.
Certainly one of my favorites too.
That one's one of my favorite episodes. That one and Trial by Tribulations are two of my favorite Disney episodes.
All right, well, I think we should talk about a Prodigy episode. So, given your background, Bonnie, so the M5 has selected the episode Kobayashi. And of course, very similar in a lot of ways to Trials and Tribulations, but I'll let you tell us about that. So why did this particular episode get selected?
That episode in particular is such a love letter to Star Trek. So the beautiful thing about Prodigy is that you don't have to know anything about Star Trek to enjoy it and watch it. And they did that on purpose because they are introducing Trek to a younger generation who might not have the Star Trek knowledge that other viewers might. So again, this show is aimed for Star Trek fans of all different kinds, whether they be new to the verse or old. And episode 6, Kobayashi, is a perfect example of that. That one in particular was written by Aaron Walke, who is a huge Trekkie, by the way, and you can just tell by watching it. It was a love letter to Trek. The episode revolves around Dal, you know, the young teenage wannabe captain of the Protostar, wanting to prove that he can captain and can run the ship, and finds out that there's a test that captains take in Starfleet to prove that they have what it takes. So of course he wants to take it. And he goes to the holodeck, runs the Kobayashi Maru program, and doesn't really have a crew with him. So he tells the computer to basically generate the best you got. And as the voice of the ship computer, that episode in particular was my favorite memory of recording, because reading the lines as the computer, getting to say, you know, Science Officer Spock, Communications Officer Uhura, Chief of Security Odo, like getting to say all of these characters that I'm so familiar with and that I love so much, Head Medical Officer, Beverly Crusher, you know, like all of these characters that I adore. And I got to say their name as the computer and bring them to life was just such a joy. And it's basically this poor kid doesn't understand that it's a no-winning situation and runs the simulation like over 100 times trying to figure out how to beat it.
My favorite part is Jankum Pa giving a commentary on every attempt and how bad it was. It's glorious.
I loved as the computer, you know, after the first run through, assessing him and be like, you know, leadership skills 2%, you know, judgment 4%, you know, problem solving 0.02%, you know, like giving an assessment of his captain choices. So that was just a fun episode to record. So it's just a fond memory for me. And also, it's such a great episode because you get to see all these characters, you know, that, again, we haven't heard or seen from in such a long time because, you know, with Leonard Nimoy passing away, with Odo, with
Mm-hmm.
Scotty, with all of them gone now. They pulled audio from the record, from the archives to have it. And now that we just lost Nichelle Nichols, it's even more heartbreaking to see Uhura on there and hearing her voice. It's like, oh, we just lost her. So now I feel like this episode is just shines in comparison. It's such a beautiful episode, and it has a great message. It shows him that, Spock gives this amazing speech to him about how it's not about like being the captain. It's about listening to your crew. It's about doing what's best for them. And, it was that episode is a big turning moment for Dal, and how he starts to interact with the rest of the crew and respecting their opinions and respecting their strengths. So I feel like that episode in particular just is a great pivotal moment for Prodigy. Another great thing about that episode is watching the credits and seeing my name on the same still as Leonard Nimoy and Beverly and Gates McFadden and Nichelle Nichols. Basically, my name is like right there with them on the closing credits, and I really want to freeze frame that and get that blown up on canvas.
I would wager that if you sent an email to like the assistant editor, I bet he could give you like a super high quality JPEG of that.
Possibly. I should look into that, because honestly, that's something I'd want on my wall right there. Just
the only reason I even know this is because there's a guy who's very active on Trek Twitter named Chad Rubel, who's actually the editor on Star Trek Discovery. Yeah. And he says all actors should do this. When, you get your credits, always email the assistant editor and say, I need the best, high quality, mega sized JPEG of that, you know, and they'll send it to you. It's not a thing.
I'm going to have to do that for sure.
So the M5 tells me that he couldn't figure out a single episode. So he just sent me an entire season of Strange New Worlds and said all of these. So tell me what's going on here with Strange New Worlds, all of this.
Oh my gosh. I'm loving Strange New Worlds. I feel like it brings the best of what we love from old Trek and the best of what we love from all the new Trek coming out, and puts it in this little happy cupcake with a cherry on top. I feel like Strange New Worlds, they're just doing such a great job. The writing, the characters, everything. And it just has that Star Trek nostalgia feeling as well. But with a new shiny toys. It's like taking old toys and making them shiny again. I guess that's the best way to describe it. I just love what they're doing. I do in particular love the episode where they're all stuck in like the storybook characters. I felt like that was such a fun episode because back in Pike and Kirk time, they didn't have a holodeck. It's like, how do we do a fun holodeck episode without a holodeck? And that was the perfect solution, is them getting stuck in that nebula, and the nebula creating this fairy tale world from the mind of a child, where everyone's having to play these characters. And it's so good. And I felt like you could just tell the cast was just having such a blast.
Yeah, the Elysian Kingdom was that episode.
Yes, that episode in particular to me stands out. I just love the characters, the diversity, they all have such amazing strengths to each of their characters. The actors are bringing such life to characters that we're already familiar with and already know, and some of the new characters that we're not familiar with. The chief engineer in particular, one of my favorite characters. Spoilers, I'm so sad that he got killed. But
there was a little bit of a hubbub about that, for sure. I was
furious. He was my favorite character in Strange New Worlds. I was like, no, you can't get rid of him. He's so good. But yeah, I'm just enjoying it so much, and I can't wait for more. I feel like between all the new Trek that we're getting, what a time to be a Trekkie. Am I right? What a time to be a Trekkie. We are getting just so much good Star Trek content. Oh, it's great.
So, Bonnie, the question has to be asked, what does Star Trek mean to you?
Ooh, what a loaded question. What does Star Trek mean to me? Star Trek, I feel like, for a lot of people, including myself, is hope. Is hope for the future. You look at what we're going through today with everything from, global warming and inflation and the pandemic, and just, every negative thing you see on the news, and every when you look at sci-fi in general, with Star Trek, it's hope. It's hope for our future. Like, look at what we overcame. Look at what we can overcome. All of the technology from like the original series and Next Gen, like all the things that they've done, we're practically accomplishing it now. Like, look at, with communicators. Now we have cell phones. I feel like Star Trek is just so inspiring. And a lot of what we've seen happen in the original series with different technology and different things that have been invented have now come to pass with today. And now we have different medical advances that were inspired by things seen on Star Trek. So really, I feel like Star Trek is just another word for hope, because what better future can we dream of than being able to explore the universe and also be one with other different types of races and alien species and working together to create peace, in my opinion. I think that's the best answer I can give.
Bonnie, I've really enjoyed this conversation, but I have to tell you that the M5 is signaling me that it is now time for the Kobayashi Maru lightning round.
Oh no. Okay, I'm ready.
The Kobayashi Maru is a challenging and difficult test, cunningly prepared just for you by the M5 Multitronic unit. Should you not only survive the test, but pass it as well, the M5 will award you an honorary Star Trek title. Are you ready to face the Kobayashi Maru, Bonnie?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
M5, load the Kobayashi Maru simulation and prepare to record Bonnie's responses.
The simulation is ready.
Pick your favorite of these uniforms: the Discovery Medical Whites, the TOS Movie Era Engineering Rad Suit, or the Voyager Cadet Grays as seen in Endgame.
I'm going with Medical White on Discovery.
Who should we have seen more of? Mr. Leslie from TOS, Lieutenant J from TNG, or Impella the Dabo Girl from DS9?
Impella. Everything's better with more gaming.
Favorite phaser beam color: red, blue, orange, or green?
Blue.
Pick a ship to take a trip: the Vulcan Shuttle from Star Trek the Motion Picture, the SS Zosa from Deep Space Nine, or the Callisto from TNG?
Let's go with the Vulcan Shuttle. Yeah.
All right. And just for you, Bonnie, pick the most classic line from the 1701D computer. Option 1, warp core ejection systems offline. 2, program complete, enter when ready. Option 3, insert name of character is not on board the Enterprise.
Ooh, let me think. Captain Picard is not aboard the Enterprise.
Simulation complete. M5, please compute the results and tell us if our guest has passed the Kobayashi Maru.
Working.
Bonnie, I am pleased to tell you the M5 has calculated that you have passed the Kobayashi Maru simulation. Congratulations.
Fantastic.
And now, the M5, who has analyzed your answers, will award you an honorary Star Trek title on behalf of our little program. M5, what title shall we award our guest?
Bonnie Gordon is awarded the title of Paragon Voice Model for the M7 computer line.
So there you go.
I love this. Oh, yeah. All right.
Bonnie, please tell people how they can get in touch with you, where they can follow you and see all your projects and keep up with all your various bands and other appearances.
Sure. So I'm pretty easy to find all over social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can find me all at Bonnie Bell G. That's BONNIEBELLG. I have a solo album called Con Artist coming out probably in the next month or two. Very, very soon. It's almost done. So keep a look on social media for that. You can find my comedy band at Library Bards. It's like library cards, but with a B. Huzzah. And yeah, you can just check out Star Trek Prodigy on Paramount Plus and Nickelodeon. Keep watching all of Star Trek. The more we watch, the more we'll get. So it's been such a great time talking with you. And thank you, Trek Profiles, for having me as a guest.
Bonnie, thank you so much for being part of Trek Profiles.
I really appreciate it. Live long and prosper, everybody.
Here ends this installment of the Trek Profiles podcast. And before we offer a Trek quote to close this episode, I'd like to remind you that you may send us your delightful dispatches of delectation, your disapproving diatribes of dislike, or videos of yourself doing the Starbase 80 shuffle to feedback@trekprofiles.com, or on Facebook or Twitter @TrekProfiles. Anything you send us can be used in the show, or it may be handed out to passers-by at the Starfleet recruitment booth. This time, I'll leave you with a quote from Dr. Crusher, who in the episode Kobayashi said, quote, "The phenomenon of your stubbornness belongs in a medical textbook." Close quote. Thanks for listening, and live long and prosper.
This handcrafted podcast is brought to you by Stars and Sky Media Lab. It's cosmic.
All right, outstanding. So, first of all, so awesome to meet you.
Yay!
and I realized in my prep for this, because I'm sorry, Bonnie, but I do some gentle internet sleuthing.
Sure.
And I realized that you were on The Quest, which was a glorious show that I loved and adored, and I was rooting for you, and I was so sad when you were eliminated. So, yes.
I was sad, too. And I was even more sad that Patrick didn't win.
That show is like peak nerd. Peak
Speaking
fantasy.
of peak nerd, I just removed my retainers. So, wow, I am peak nerd at this moment.
Where do you identify as from?
Louisiana, born and raised.
Okay. So I
just left after Katrina because
I remember when that was. I had a good friend from Louisiana. His name was Brandon. And whenever you asked him about Louisiana, he'd always say one thing, which was, there's two parts of Louisiana. There's the Hick part and the Cajun part. I'm from the Hick part.
I'm from the Cajun part.
Perfect. Do you know Paul Mattingly?
Like personally?
No. I mean, have you ever met him? Because he's worked at The Experience too.
I was part of the closing cast, so possibly I don't know what years he worked.
Oh, okay. Because he was a guest on my show.
I was there 07, 08, and I didn't get to work with everyone there. I do remember some. Again, this was a long time ago. This was over 10 years ago. So I've kept in touch with quite a few, especially some of the actors like April Hebert and,
of course,
and Vernon, and I've kept in touch with all of them, and can't wait to see them when I go down there for Star Trek Las Vegas.
April and Vernon are like the torchbearers for the Experience cast, I think.
Exactly. Very, very true. And in fact, yeah, any new Star Trek news I have, I usually I'll like sometimes text them and be like, I miss them very much.
Oh, they're awesome. I was at the 10th anniversary thing that they had at Millennium Fandom here in Vegas.
Sadly, I missed it. I was working.
No, I understand, but it was a great moment just to get together and talk about the experience and how fantastic it was.
Yeah, they're wonderful people.
Oh, right. Cosplay light. I get it. Well, I hope
a diet cosplay.
How about this? We, if you find me on Saturday at STLV, we got to get a photo together because I'll be doing a rather obscure deep cut cosplay.
Perfect.
I will be playing Lieutenant Commander Hars Adislo, which you won't recognize because most people would not recognize that guy. But do you remember Star Trek Insurrection?
Oh, gosh.
Right, the movie?
Yeah.
At the beginning of the movie, they're having like a cocktail hour on the Enterprise, and they're welcoming this like alien delegation, and Picard has to wear this like ridiculous looking wig kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like the ceremonial greeting wig. And there's this Bolian, a blue guy, who's chasing around Picard going, "Captain Picard, have you read my paper on thermionic transconductance? Have you read my paper on thermionic transconductance, Captain?" Like, and every time he
tell
turns
me
around,
you're actually holding a paper when you cosplay.
I have I have it right here. I wrote a paper, and I have a sign. But the thing is, when I cosplay, I actually do the character. So I tend not to break it. So I'll be doing the Bolian guy. It's not just
that's fantastic. That's what I do. So if ever I'm hired for an event at a con or anything like that, where, for example, at San Diego Comic-Con, there was a big Tim Burton bash event, and I was asked to wear the Queen of Hearts outfit, like to dress up like the Queen of Hearts, and they provided everything for me, which was amazing.
Nice.
But I refused to break character the entire night. That's how I kind of do it as well. Like if I'm going to be wearing a costume, I'm going full out.
You got to be in, right? You got to be in it to win it.
I feel like the one time I cosplayed big time at San Diego Comic-Con was I dressed up as on-land Ariel from The Little Mermaid because I had just gone through vocal surgery. I had a cyst growing on my vocal cord, and I had to have vocal surgery. So I wasn't able to speak for an entire month. And of course, San Diego Comic-Con fell into that timeline. So I walked around as on-land Ariel, and people would be coming up and talking to me and asking me questions, and I couldn't speak to them. So I was like Ariel from The Little Mermaid, unable to speak, and would like have to. It was really funny, and they were like, "Wow, she's really in character." But little did they know I was healing from vocal surgery and wasn't physically able to speak. So,
well, I'm glad everything worked out for you.
I was definitely in character.
So I think, Bonnie, that well, wait a minute. Before we jump into episodes, I want to ask you a totally non-Star Trek related question.
Uh-oh.
Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right. You said you're a fantasy geek, so I want to know if you are excited for the Rings of Power.
Yes, I am, because Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings were, I think, my introduction to becoming who I am. Does that make sense? I read The Hobbit when I was very young, 3rd grade, and read Lord of the Rings soon after that. I don't know. I read it now and I go, how in the world did I understand this as a child? Like I don't know how I got through it. As an adult, I'm like, wow, this is some heavy reading for a kid, let alone me now. But it was my first. It was the first. The Hobbit, I think, was the first book that really transported me to a different world. And I would run around my room as Bonnie Baggins. I had a little butter knife in my pocket to be my sting. I was like all in. And I still introduce myself sometimes as Bonnie Baggins, like as a joke. And I feel like I live perfectly in the Shire. I'm a big fan of Second Breakfast, and pretty much every meal they have there. I love food. So I'm thinking with the Rings of Power that's coming out, I'm so excited to see them expand upon the Tolkien universe and also just give us something new. You know, it's been so long since we've had something since Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, you know, have been done. It's just so nice to bring it back to life and to kind of expand on the universe and see other characters' stories. And yeah, I'm very excited. Well, considering it's a no-win scenario, I probably didn't pass.
No, you did. Everyone passes. It's actually funny because when I was doing a Deep Space Nine rewatch recently, I kept noticing the character Impella, the Dabo girl. And she'd be there right next to Chase Masterson, you know, doing the Dabo thing. And it kept looking like she was going to say something. And I was like, does she get a line? Nope, she doesn't get a line. And then there's another episode. It looks like she's going to talk, and she doesn't talk. And I was like, oh my God. And then there's one episode where somebody attacks her, and like she's actually a character in the episode, and they don't give her a line. Like they're just like, look at her over there. And I was like, Impella, the show did her wrong. And then I think she got like 2 lines, like way late in season 7 or something. They gave her a line or 2. Anyway.
That's so sad.
I know, it's so sad. Boom diggity, we're done. Was that okay for you?
It's perfect. Thank you.